Very good, everybody. Welcome to this webinar this afternoon. We're grateful that Dr. Brazil and some of his family members are able to be here with us. Welcome to you wherever you're from. If you haven't had the opportunity to put in the chat where you're from, invite you to go ahead and do that. We've got an international audience here today, people from Oregon, Colorado, California, Canada, Pennsylvania. I'm here in Nevada. The Brazils and their family are from California. And we welcome you. We're grateful that you're able to be here. This recording is also being repurposed as a podcast. It goes out generally the following Monday on the Profitable Steward podcast channel. And the video will go up on our YouTube channel, which is the Profitable Ag Steward. So as we get started, those that are here, if you haven't already registered for the free summit next week, encourage you to do that. That's a great opportunity to be able to learn from great industry leaders. I'm going to drop the link in the chat here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that after Dr. Brazil's presentation. Next week is, let's see, what are we on? I think this is our 7th summit that we've done. And it never ceases to amaze me the caliber of speakers that come together for these. And it's not me. It's just through me at Ag Steward. We're very intentional and prayerful about what we do. Put it in God's hand. We let Him know, hey, this is our intention to be able to serve the agriculture community. And we have a wonderful team behind us that does the reach outs. And we're very grateful for the speakers who volunteer to come and to speak at these, and grateful to you who register and come. So if you're listening to the podcast and it's after, so let's see, that'll be the 15th and 16th next week. Tax day. If you haven't filed your extension or filed your taxes yet, hurry and get that done so you don't have that on your mind during the summit. Our extension is in the works right now. Taxes are not being filed, but we're getting that taken care of. So next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll see you on the virtual summit. So Dr. Brazil, I'd love to let us know a little bit about your background, where you're from, before we jump into the presentation, and give us some context for who you are.
Well, thank you, Jared. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate what you're doing for your clients. You definitely give a lot of great value. You're a really good networker, so really appreciate what you're doing. A bit about myself. I'm a large animal veterinarian and ranch management consultant. I've been doing this since 1988. I've had an interest in helping my producers to be more profitable, and that eventually kind of led to the production of what we call Ranch Vision, which is a software that we launched about 6 months ago or so. Yeah, I went to UC Davis. I studied at UC Davis, also in Australia. Came back, met my wife in vet school. She's a veterinarian also. We have 8 children. Michaela is here. She is one of our children, and still practicing up in far northern California. So,
very cool. Yep. So I actually came across the Ranch Vision ad on Facebook. I say that God has the best algorithm interrupt there is, because it's not like I actually do spend a considerable amount of time on Facebook now that we are running ads and we're watching how our ads are performing. And even though I have a team that does that, I like to look at how other people reach, especially our target audience. And so I came across this ad, and it spoke to me about being profitable, about having a system, about having software to be able to manage that. So I reached out, put my contact information in, and maybe some of you have done that as well. Maybe that was what led you to this webinar here. Reached out and was just really amazed at the robustness of this software. Especially after any of you who have worked with Ag Steward, our clunky spreadsheets. I mean, they get the job done, but I've prayed that there would be a way to be able to help people to see clearly the financial data in a way that would be intuitive, would be easy to understand, would be easy to input. And I knew that I did not have the skill set nor the desire. It just frustrated me to be able to build this out. And so when I saw this, I actually called my son who was out doing something. I said, "Hey, you got to come in." And so he came in and we watched that presentation together. And we're like, both of us were really floored, like, man, this is really what we've been looking for. And so it's been great to be able to work with the Brazil family and roll this out to some of our Ag Steward clients. So with that, if you guys are brand new, if this is your very first webinar that you've done, go ahead and put a number 1 in the chat. If you have done more than that, you can put 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or however many you've done. I just want to get a quick poll here to see how many of you are first timers here to Ag Steward. So, all right, looks like we do have some first timers. Welcome. This is what we do. We do it twice a month. We do these webinars, we do virtual summits, and we do consulting with farmers and ranchers, specifically those that are working towards becoming regenerative. So yeah, Rick, you've been here 8+ times, Jen multiple times, Lydia a few times, but whether you're a first timer or a many timer, we welcome you. All right, well, it looks like Michaela's gonna run the slideshow, and Dr. Brazil is gonna walk us through how this software works, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah, just a fairly simple, straightforward talk about planning to profit. I think it's essential for ranchers to plan towards a goal, a profitable goal, and a fairly simple presentation. This is something we do every day. Everything we do when you wake up in the morning, you do this. You create a plan. It should be no different for ranch businesses. So 3 points here. First of all, you have to see the big picture. That's essential, to see the big picture, to assess what's going on. And then number 2, then you assess your situation. And from there, you develop and implement a plan. So 3 simple points: see the big picture, assess your current situation, and then develop and implement a plan moving forward. It's important to plan. You've heard it said, failure to plan is a plan to fail. I think that's very, very true. We plan for everything we do, whether it's building a house or a trip across the country, whether, again, as you wake up in the morning, you look at what you have to do, you create a plan, and then you move forward. That needs to happen for ranch businesses, and that's really the problem with ranch businesses. They're not very easily able to do that. Other businesses do this. Ranch businesses need to do this as well. There's a couple, 3 different reasons why it's difficult to do for ranch businesses. Ranch businesses, it's difficult to see the big picture for 3 reasons. First of all, they're very complicated. Ranch businesses are much more complicated than your typical business because you have dynamic inventories. You have populations that are changing, that are growing. Animals are being added, they're being born, they're dying, they're reproducing at certain rates. They're going through developmental processes. For example, you have replacement heifers that are kept, then they move up to first calf heifers, second calf heifers, eventually mature cows. There's changes in valuations along the way. Animals are entering the herd, they're leaving the herd. A lot of different complicated things. And so it's difficult to see the big picture moving forward. There's probably several hundred different variables, inherent variables for each ranch business, and they're related in somewhat complex ways sometimes. So those dots need to be connected, and that's really difficult to do. It's difficult to do that, on a napkin, in your gut, what have you. You need to have that big picture view. So first of all, ranch businesses are complicated. Second, all ranch businesses are unique. Your operation is different than the guy across the road or across the state. You have different opportunities, you have different strengths, you have different threats, you have a different combination of enterprises probably. And so, there's very few one-size-fits-all answers. So you need to have information for your own ranch business to really make a plan forward. And then the last reason it's difficult to see the big picture for ranch businesses is because ranches tend to be an accumulation of multiple profit centers, and we call these enterprises. Each enterprise contributes a certain amount to overall ranch profitability. And you need to separate those out. If you don't separate them out, you can easily be making money in one area and then losing in another area. And you kind of come away with it saying, well, ranching isn't profitable. Well, you're not identifying what you do well and what you don't do well. So you need to see that. You need to understand that the ranch needs to be broken up into its individual profit centers, these enterprises, and they need to be assessed individually for how you're doing there. And so those are some of the reasons that it's difficult for ranches to see the big picture. In fact, it's almost impossible. Jared, you mentioned that you use spreadsheets, and that's the right way to approach it. You know, through a spreadsheet, that's a good idea. The most forward-thinking managers are doing that, but you know, spreadsheets can be cumbersome. If you haven't created it, then it's going to be difficult for another person to use. But that's kind of the right thinking, trying to forecast ahead, seeing what's going on in the future. You know, I'm speaking with producers almost every day, and I'm often asking them the question, you know, what are you using for forecasting, planning, decision making? And most people don't really have an answer to that. And I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. I'm genuinely curious, but also, you know, I want to prompt them maybe to think a little bit, because you really need to do that. You need to forecast, you need to plan, you need to consciously make decisions. And so, yeah, the best producers are looking at spreadsheets, but that's about all you have available. So what happens if you don't do that? If you can't see the big picture, which very, very few producers can see. Three possibilities. First of all, you manage by looking backward. So this is most of the best managers are managing by looking backward. And we have this picture here of a car going down the road, and you're looking in the rearview mirror, seeing where you've been. So when you're relying on historic record keeping and what took place last year and the year before, this is basically how you're managing. You're driving down the road and you're looking back historically. But the question really is, what do I do now, right? Last year is last year. Things change all the time. I saw today that inflation just hit the lowest level in the past 4 years, down to 2.4%. Whereas, you know, 4 years ago, it was almost at 9%. So that's a big change. Market prices change. Think of the change in the market price from last year to right now, a big change. And next year might be another big change, perhaps in a different direction. So you need to manage looking forward. You need to see the big picture. You can't just rely on what happened before. The other possibility is that you manage myopically. You know, we only manage what we can measure. And so people manage what they can see. So you can see a couple areas. For example, you can see your productivity. And a lot of attempts at management are focused myopically on simply productivity goals. So they try to maximize their reproductive numbers. They try to maximize their weaning weights, their pounds per acre. And they hope that by having enough inputs to do that, that's hopefully at the end of the day, they're going to be profitable. But there's definitely no guarantee of that. I meet with a lot of producers who have excellent production numbers who are not making money. So that's not the road to do that. Kind of the other extreme are people who focus on input costs, because again, that's an area that you can see. So you can manage towards what you can see. So some people will try to, you know, keep their costs as low as possible. The philosophy is a dollar saved is better than a dollar earned. But again, a lot of those producers aren't making money either. So it's not maximal productivity and it's not minimal cost. It's what's that right level of productivity on my unique operation that's maximally profitable? And what are those inputs that for me work and more than pay for themselves so that my profit is greater? Those are the questions that we need to ask. And then the last possibility is simply, you know, no management at all. And there's a lot of people in this bucket as well. You know, they're working hard. These are honest, hardworking people. They're, you know, head down, butt up, going forward, working hard, hoping at the end of the day that they have money in the bank. But that's not a guarantee at all. Things change. I think there's 20 to 30,000 producers going out of business each and every year in the United States right now. If you don't want to be one of them, you really need to manage. And again, so to do that, you have to see the big picture. Everything starts there. So here is kind of a panoramic view, just kind of illustrating that, right? You can see the landscape looking forward. This is what you need. You need to see the big picture. You need a vantage point from which you can understand what's going on and then identify the best path moving forward to maximally profit your ranch business. So this is the second step. Assess your current situation. So, where am I at? Where is my business going? What's working for me? What isn't working for me? And then rationally, what can I do moving forward to make the most of what I got? Those are the questions we need to ask. And, you can do this. Like I said, you can use the spreadsheets, but those are very difficult. This is why we have produced this. Ranch Vision is for that purpose. We call it Ranch Vision because it allows you to have perspective and see the whole big picture, which otherwise you really can't see very well. And so it projects your operation up to 5 years into the future, telling you if what you say is true, this is what's going to happen here, this is what's going to happen here, this is what's going to happen in this other area. And so we produce a lot of reports showing you all these different aspects of your ranch business moving forward. And now you have perspective. Now you have information to begin to create a plan. And so here's a ranch that we inputted here. It's a demonstration ranch, a ranch, real numbers. But you can see what's going on. You can see for the next 5 years, those herd numbers are going to be dropping. The cattle herd, you can see your cash inflow from sales and outflow for purchases. You can see your sales breakdown. Here are the gross margins, these different 6 different cattle enterprises, their contribution to profit. I think here's another one of a sheep enterprise. Here's the contribution for profit for the next 5 years for the sheep enterprise. It shows you your cash flow, your profit and loss, your replacement costs, your grazing demands, how much grass your animals are going to be consuming, your break-evens, your cattle break-evens, sheep break-evens, a full picture cash flow, and many other things. It produces a balance sheet. It produces many measures of profitability, solvency, liquidity, etc. There's a lot of stuff that you can bring up. We've just brought up a little bit of it. So here, this ranch, now this ranch is making $114,000 in year 1. So 6-figure income, you would probably say that's pretty good. If you remember back, and we'll look at this again, they have like less than 180 cows. They have about 150 ewes. They have several different enterprises. And you would think, hey, if I can clear, because this is incorporating all costs, all the overhead costs, all the direct costs, all opportunity costs, all non-cash and cash costs, you might say that's a pretty good number. But now that we see where we're going, looking forward, we can then begin to develop a plan to make maybe a little bit more with what we got here. Here you have projected for each of the next 5 years, these 6 different cattle enterprises. Again, these are different profit centers. Each are separated out. The program automatically does enterprise analysis to break that apart for you, to show you which areas are profitable and which aren't. The cow-calf enterprise in year 1, year 2, year 3, 4, and 5, there's a retained heifer stocker enterprise, a retained steer enterprise. There's various different acquired stocker enterprises as well. The next one I think is, you can see clearly here, they have one sheep enterprise, a ewe lamb enterprise. You can see the contribution expected for profit for each of the next 5 years, $52,198 in year 1, up to $73,000 in year 5. This is enterprise efficiency. Now, this is a very, very important number. Enterprise efficiency, you should understand, kind of like fuel efficiency, right? Fuel efficiency is how far can I go per gallon of gas? Well, enterprise efficiency is how much return, how much gross margin or profit for that profit center per unit of resource. Okay, so how much profit per unit of resource? And we can see there's a tremendous difference between these different enterprises. In year 1, the cow-calf enterprise is expected to return $66.51 per unit of grass. The retained heifers are going to return $57.77 per unit of grass. The steers, the retained steer stockers, are actually losing a lot of money, $221 $2.16 for that same unit of grass. And then you see various numbers for the acquired stocker enterprises, 22.80, 44.34, minus 60.38. Sheep enterprise is actually excellent. It's expected to return in year one $111.21 and up to $137.79 by year 5. And now, again, the program is measuring how much grass is consumed. That's important because as a rancher, you're ultimately a grass farmer. You're trying to convert that grass resource into some marketable product, whether it's beef or lamb or wool or goat or mohair, whatever that might be. So it's important to measure that resource. And so we measure it from the demand side, from the cow or the grazing side. It's difficult actually to measure it from the production side because it's so related to precipitation and things like that. Very difficult to measure it that way, but we can measure it very accurately from the demand side. We know how much had to be eaten for those animals to grow from one state to another, to reproduce as they do, etc. So we're measuring it from the demand side. We can see that here these animals total are using almost 3,000 grazing unit months. So that's what is happening on the ranch. In year one, they're consuming almost 3,000 grazing unit months. And we see the profit, like we saw before in year one, a little over $114,000, a little over $125,000 by year 5 moving forward. And so that kind of brings up the third step, to develop and implement a plan. And that brings up this profit equation. And the profit equation here, you see there's the summation of the gross margins for the different enterprises minus overheads. That's your profit. Gross margin for each enterprise added up minus the overheads that's what equals profit. And so from here, we can develop a ranch profit roadmap very straightforwardly. Only 2 ways you can increase your profit. Either you decrease overheads or you increase gross margins. And so, 5-step ranch profit roadmap. First, decrease overheads. 2, add a non-competing enterprise or multiple enterprises. 3, increase your enterprise efficiency. 4, reallocate limited resources. And number 5, develop resources. So we'll take them step by step. First, decrease overheads. So you can see if you can lower overheads, for every dollar of overhead you can drop, your profit is going to go up an equivalent amount. So here with this ranch, and what are overheads, right? Overheads are things that don't change with regards to production levels. They stay the same all the time. So you should really consider overheads as necessary evils. To the degree you have to incur them, you do, but the less you can incur, the better. Every dollar saved in overheads is an increased dollar of profit. So examples of overheads are utilities, interest, insurance, phone lines, fuel, wages, repairs, depreciation, things of that nature, things that don't change relative to production levels. And so here on the Ranch Vision input page, we can see the overheads for this ranch. The cash overheads are $45,500. There's other non-cash overheads, an additional $27,000. We were able to decrease overheads by about $5,000 simply by identifying some landlines that weren't being used anymore, renegotiating some insurance costs on some vehicles. That's less than a 5% change. So or less than a 10% change. That's not a big deal. But again, every dollar you save there, and we can see as we were able to decrease the overheads, the ranch profit went up equivalently. So now from 114,000 in year 1, we're now at 119,600. And in year 5, it's up to 131,500. Next step, you can also add non-competing enterprises. So you can add enterprises that aren't competing for the same resources that your existing enterprises are. So you have to realize, right, like your ranch, you have existing infrastructure. There are things that you can do. There are alternative enterprises that you could employ that would add additional gross margin and add additional profit. So the degree you can do that, that's a worthwhile thing to do. So just some of the different non-grazing enterprises that you might have a hay enterprise, you might have crops, you might have orchards, you might have a hunting club, you might have a direct-to-consumer beef or pork operation, you might have pigs or chickens or honeybees, equestrian boarding. There's a lot of different possibilities. Every ranch is different. The opportunities are different. This ranch, we added a direct-to-consumer beef operation. They had a feeding facility. They were able to feed some cattle and sell that, and that increased an additional gross margin of $43,500, and so that increases their profit that same amount. So now that ranch is making $163,000 in year one, and over 174, almost 175,000 by year 5, just by making that change. The next step is to increase enterprise efficiency. In other words, increase the amount of return that you receive per unit of resource. Ranch Vision allows you to do that because once you put in your inputs, you can do virtually any cost-benefit analysis. You just simply change those different inputs, and you can see instantly the results accordingly for your operation in your situation. And so enterprise efficiency for grazing livestock operations, the key figure is gross margin per unit of grass, gross margin per grazing unit month. And so we were able to make some changes. We looked at the cow-calf enterprise. We saw kind of some low conception rates in the mature cows, and just noticed that those cows were thin. Just by implementing some feed management changes, paying a little more attention to body condition scoring coming into calving, we expect that they'll be able to increase their conception rates just 2 or 3%. But doing that made a change from $66 per grazing unit month up to $75 per grazing unit month in year 1 and $96 in year 5. And so that changes the profit equation. Again, we're not doing things, we're not doing a lot more things. We're simply, doing more of the right things. And so now overall ranch profit expected year 1 over 182,000, over 214,000 in year 5. The next, the fourth point is to reallocate limited resources. If you remember, some of those enterprises weren't that profitable. Their enterprise efficiency was low, even negative. So, if you're doing those, you might say, wow, I'm wasting my grass, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my effort. Why do I want to do those? Why don't I contract or eliminate those enterprises and maybe expand a more profitable enterprise? And so that's what we did here. You can see these 3 different cattle enterprises: the retained heifers, the retained steers, the acquired stockers. They're either negative or very little gross margin. But again, they're using up grass. So with a click of a button, we decided to not employ those enterprises. You can see they have much lower enterprise efficiencies, even negative. We wanted to free that grass up to then employ it with our cow-calf enterprise. You can see additionally, right now we're using about 3,000 grazing unit months. We want to stay at that level. We know that our ground has the capacity to maintain that, but we're going to employ it in a better way. So now the cattle gross margins are adjusted accordingly. You can see an increase in the cow-calf gross margins, and we don't have those losses. We don't have that meager retained heifer stocker gross margins anymore. And now that made an additional impact. And now you're over $214,000 just making that change on this ranch. We've almost doubled profitability here in year 1, just by making some very simple, straightforward changes. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not weaning 900-pound calves, 100-pound or 100% pregnancy rates, things like that. We're just doing things a little bit smarter. So, yep. The last point is to develop resources. How can you further develop the resources that you have access to then employ them with your enterprises to make more money? So for grazing enterprises, we're talking about pasture improvements. I know, Jared, this is a big point for you, right? Better grazing management practices. That's an important way to do that. Also, you could possibly do it through irrigation or fertilization or seeding or virtual fencing. Virtual fencing is a new option, right? It allows you to perhaps graze areas of your ranch that you couldn't graze before, or now you can, you can program the collars and you can better graze without additional fencing. So that's that is a new innovation. But you could also just increase the land that you have available by acquiring a new lease or purchase, and that's what we did here. We just were able to acquire a lease on a neighboring property. That property, we're able to increase our grass resource just about a third, to go from 3,000 to 4,000 grazing unit months. And on that, we wanted to increase our sheep enterprise because that was the most profitable. We chose to buy sheep. So you can do this on the program. We chose to buy them. We took out a loan to do that at existing interest rates. All the interest costs are incorporated. All the cash flow is incorporated. We expanded the enterprise, the sheep enterprise, to meet that demand. And now we're grazing about 4,000 grazing unit months. We've gone up about 1,000 grazing unit months. But now look at the difference in profit. Now profit is over $328,000. Now, again, this isn't a huge operation. These are realistic numbers. And this is almost a tripling of a fairly profitable ranch business, going in year one now from $114,000 to $328,000. In year 5, from $125,000 to over $380,000 of profit. Now, this is economic profit. This is taking everything into consideration. Again, opportunity costs, cash and non-cash costs, everything. Again, it's all from perspective, right? It's all from stepping back, being able to see what's going on your unique operation, and then to make rational decisions moving forward, to make a better plan, to make the most of what you have in your unique operation. So yeah, 3 points, right? See the big picture. That's the biggest challenge. Then you need to assess your situation. You do that through the reports. Looking forward, it shows you where these things are going, if what you say is true. And then you finally develop and implement a plan. So yeah, that's pretty much it, Jared. Happy to take questions. I know that's a lot, but definitely happy to stay and as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, Dr. Brazil. We appreciate that. That is a great overview. Way to boil it down and keep it simple. Somebody asked in the chat, what does the tutorials, helpline, customer service look like once they onboard or once they sign up with you?
Yeah. So once they sign up, we do an onboarding. That involves me. So we give the users, let them take a week or two to try and input their numbers. The more that they can do, the better, because that leaves more time for me to help them look at their situation and do what we kind of talked about here, see where they're going, help them to identify some things, basically kind of teach them how to fly the plane a little bit. And then after that, we continue to have, we're available. We return calls the same day, usually, within an hour or two. So we're available. We want people to be really happy and pleased. I dealt with my producers for a lot of years. Personal interaction is important. So we're not going to leave people high and dry. Definitely be available to help them.
Cool. Yeah, Jen, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Looks like you're bouncing around. Maybe. What are you doing, Jen? It looks like you're in a tractor.
Last time I was on here with you, I was planting cover crops, and now sadly I'm risking them in.
All right. What's
your job?
Question? Go ahead.
My question is, if that looks really, really awesome on the livestock side, but I was wondering are we able to apply this to the farming side? Because we have 3 different farming enterprises. Is there a program that goes along with the farming side?
Yeah. So Ranch Vision allows you to look at up to 18 different grazing livestock enterprises, but also an unlimited number of non-grazing livestock enterprises. So yeah, the things we talked about, crops, chickens, pigs, direct to consumer beef operations, all those things are incorporated into the whole big picture, the whole ranch picture. You know, your profit and loss, your cash flow, it's incorporated into the whole thing.
Yep. And yes, another question here is, do you have a list of the information that we need at the onboarding meeting?
Yeah, so we have some videos, you know, kind of walking people through the onboarding process. There's also a quick help that with every input page, there's definitions of, you know, so hopefully there's no ambiguity as to what we're asking for. By the way, the program doesn't require record keeping. It's pretty straightforward. Most of the things we ask are things that the producer should know or should have a fairly simple time getting. Again, we're not looking backwards at what happened before. We're identifying where you're at now and what your expectations are moving forward. And so you put that information in. So you don't have to have a ton of historical records. But again, the videos kind of walk you through the different input panels. And I'm happy to show those to you, by the way, if you are interested. Yeah, any questions you might have, we'll fill in the blanks when we meet with you. And that's like an hour-long session together.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty good. I've sat in on at least one or maybe two of those. So we have another resource available on our inside our members area for those who are current Ag Steward members. Rich and his team went through and did more of an in-depth. So if you'd like access to that, we can talk about what that looks like. Reach out to me. Jen asks again, does it come with paper instructions or a handbook?
Yeah, everything is online for you. So we have an extensive help section, by the way. The program is being used like by Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and hopefully there's a curriculum being developed to use at other major ag schools to teach. And so we have a section on understanding ranch businesses. So it explains ranch businesses to you. We also have another section, planning to profit, managing for profit with Ranch Vision. And so it enables you to work through that as well. So yeah, here's some of that, how to manage with Ranch Vision, plan assessment, profit planning, increasing gross margins, things like that. At the top, if you could slide up to the top, there's a whole section here, understanding ranch businesses. So that's all, you know, ranching 101, enterprise analysis, enterprise efficiency, living enterprises, etc. You can see these things here. We have that there for you to kind of, you know, bring people up to speed, to understand these things. They're not that complicated, but, you know, we just want to set the groundwork so we're all talking the same language. But yeah, that's available. Hopefully soon. There's, like I say, there's a curriculum right now being written for some of these universities. Might make that available as well.
Cool. Yeah, and yeah, definitely it is a very robust program. I was really impressed. There are some updates that you guys are working on to make it a little bit more user friendly, but it's not like you're going to find frustration when you get in there. You know, it does what it says it's going to do, and does a really good job at it. A question that I have is, we don't know if the cattle cycle is going to break. You know, we're at record high cattle prices. How does this tool help to manage or forecast? If we're a traditional cow-calf operator, we're budgeting in maybe $1,800 calves, but all of us can remember those $800 calves that weren't very long ago. When I took over management, I remember when we sold our first calf for over $1 a pound. And that to me was like, holy cow, we should be profitable, right? We got back to the 1970 prices. We're at $1 a pound, and things should be going good. So can you talk a little bit about that, how inventory valuations as they maybe your cow herd depreciates and as commodity prices go down, how this will help forecast?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, we take all that into account. We allow the user a lot of freedom to play with things. You can do any what if scenario, like I say, any cost benefit analysis. Here is the forecast input page, so you can tell us what your expectations might be for the cattle market. Where do you expect it to do? Go up or go down or stay steady? And again, you can play with this. You're not going to break anything. You can instantly make a change, hit save. All the reports are going to instantly adjust. So you would see what would happen in that scenario. So cattle market, sheep market, wool market, lamb, mohair, goats, what you expect the inflation rate to be, right? So it's incorporating that in this 5-year projection. It's incorporating inflation into your expenses. It's also incorporating opportunity costs. So we have you put in an opportunity interest rate. What is your identified opportunity interest rate? Michaela, if you would bring up the quick help just to show you, we have lots of tools that help you with that, right? So for example, for the opportunity interest rate, a good benchmark is a 7-year treasury bill. We have that link right there for you. Again, we try to walk you through this and make it really pretty simple. But you're able to look at all those different things and to come up, eventually to where you're confident moving forward. Okay. You're confident with your plan according to your expectations, and you can view what if things don't happen the way I think? What if the bottom falls out of the cattle market? What if there's a drought? How can I best manage accordingly? Really anything. It allows you this view moving forward. You have this interactive simulation of your ranch business, and then you can do what we do for everything else. You can make a coherent plan.
Love it. So Michaela, maybe while you're bringing up, if you are able to bring up the monthly cash flow tool and show how that works, it's a good question. Let's we'll transition over there, but I know this is an international audience. Our listeners are from different countries. Does this work with different currencies, different weight values, kilos versus pounds?
Yeah. Michaela, why don't you bring up ranch profile? So we allow you to choose your weight measurement, right? Whether it's pounds or kilograms. It works internationally. Really, there's no restrictions. These fundamental variables are common to all grazing livestock enterprises. We allow you to adapt it to your specific situation. So yeah, whether it's in Canada, we have a lot of producers in Canada, have some in Australia as well. We also have a market tool, a market lookup tool. You tell us where you're at, which is why we ask, where do you live? And then in our purchases and sales, we bring up local market reports for you. So in the U.S., we bring up the USDA current market report, so you have that at your fingertips. But we don't just do that for the U.S. It's also for Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, England, as well. So yeah, we don't have it in Spanish yet. Hope to make that change, but
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that is pretty cool. All right. Yeah, can we look at the cash flow and how that projects out on a monthly or annual basis? So there we go.
Yeah, so we produce a monthly purchases outflow for livestock purchases. It's showing what you're going to spend each month for the next 12 months looking forward for livestock purchases, and also a sales inflow, kind of the complementary sales inflow. Here is where your money's going to be coming, how much you can expect each month for the next 12 months. Most producers, right, you don't get a bi-monthly paycheck, right? So this is telling you, hey, in April, I'm going to have a big payday. I'm going to have quite a bit more in May, and then I'm going to have just a little in June, a little more in July, and kind of shows you that. Also shows you the big picture. Again, incorporating everything, all enterprises that you might have, your annual cash inflow, cash outflow for the next 5 years as well.
Very cool. Yeah, sounds good. Michaela, would you like to jump on and kind of give a perspective? You're in on many of these, not necessarily anything that your father may have missed, but anything that you would like to add.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jared. I would say that the presentation that we started off at the top with, going through just the 5-step ranch roadmap, it seems simple, but that's what we're doing with Ranch Vision users. As my dad said, you don't have to use Ranch Vision. You could be trying to do the same management with a spreadsheet or pen and paper, but that plan is going to hold true regardless. That's truly the strategy to building a profitable operation. So happy to answer any specific questions on that too. We're not here to sell you the program. We really, we're a missional company. We want to help ranchers succeed. We want to help them stick around for the long run. And I think that 5-step ranch roadmap, I'm happy to bring it up again if anybody wants a screenshot, but that is really the fundamental strategy behind how we use Ranch Vision. Ranch Vision is just a tool, right? You are the producers, you're the operators, you're the ones doing this every day and making it work. So this is just a tool to help you succeed. And whether, you use this or something else, that 5-step plan is the way to go.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. And from your perspective, Michaela, what, as you've looked at a lot of businesses, as you've onboarded, are there commonalities, common things where you're seeing like, hey, this is a surprise, or this is a common pitfall that producers face?
One thing that comes up constantly now is folks wanting to look at what would a direct-to-consumer segment of their business look like, and how could we run the numbers on that and move forward with confidence, because there's some costs associated, right, before you jump into a totally new segment of your business. So we run through that analysis with a lot of folks. That's something the program can do, but that's just something that's on top of everyone's minds, which I love, right, as a consumer of beef. I think that is just a fantastic trend right now, and there's a lot of potential there. So that's definitely a trend we're seeing. I would say, as far as another insight, just this enterprise efficiency report really can't overstate how unique and powerful this is. Whether you're running cattle, sheep, or goats, once you get your numbers in the program and you see the difference in efficiency between your different enterprises, it's truly, that is the aha moment for producers who maybe have been doing the same thing for several generations. They've been managing well, they've been working hard, but once they get their numbers into the program and they can see, I'm actually losing money with this retained steer stalker operation in this case, or a potential acquired stalker operation, it's kind of a jaw-dropping moment, because why would anyone want to work hard on something that's going to lose them money, best case scenario, all things considered? So just that fundamental reallocation from unprofitable enterprises towards more profitable enterprises is where we see the needle move the most. So I would say that's always really fun to do with producers.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that, Michaela. Thanks for the input. And I'll ask you that question too, Dr. Brazil, not just since you've rolled out Ranch Vision, but in your tenure as consulting with ranchers, large at-scale producers. What are some of the common pitfalls within the livestock producers that you see that kind of maybe we're blind to, but you're able to shed some light on?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing really is taking time to really plan. Producers tend to be really hardworking, tenacious people. I mean, they'll spend half a day to put a fence post in a rocky point in the ground, or another half a day to pull out a dead calf, right? But it's so important to maybe spend 2 or 3 hours to figure out where in the world you're going, and am I wasting my time or not? So that's the biggest thing. I think if most producers would create the discipline that they have in the rest of their life, to maybe sit down a little bit and just pay a little bit of attention and figure this out. And that's kind of why we tried to make it simple, right? We don't want people to have lots of historical information and asking questions that they really don't have. These are fairly basic questions that we ask them. So we want to make the lift as easy as possible, so that they take a moment to see, wow, why am I doing that, right? And to make a little difference. I'd say one other thing, though, right now, really see this commonly. Just the, calf prices are through the roof, right? I mean, calf here, in the U.S., 400-pound calves are sometimes over $2,000 right now. We're $5 a pound.
Yeah.
And that's crazy when you're trying to buy those weaned calves and then feed them up, and the margins are so minimal. Those enterprises can be really difficult right now. Some people have the opportunity, some people can do that well, but you just have to be very careful right now and really figure things out, because yeah, you can invest a lot of money and really have very little, if anything, to show for it at the end of the day.
I love that specific note. And just to add two more, maybe you could talk about, because we recently, I think we had some blog posts about body condition score and at Breedback, and also hybrid vigor. Those are two kind of niche recommendations you buy really.
Yeah, these are kind of back to basic type of things. This is just basic management. This is, we're not talking expensive, fancy stuff. It's just fundamental animal husbandry, right? The most critical thing for cows at breedback time is body condition score. Or the most critical time for breedback for cows is their body condition score at breedback time, at breeding time. If they're below a 5, if they're a 4 or lower, it really impacts their breedback, and that's so important, because if they're if they're late, then it's really hard to make that time up. And so those cows really need to be at good body condition score. The other thing Michaela mentioned is, hybrid vigor, a very simple economic thing, right? This is not rocket science. A lot of people, and you got behind you a bunch of black cattle right now, right? A lot of my producers have had black cattle for the last 20, 25 years because black sells, right? People like black cattle, and there's definite advantages to it. But we forget about hybrid vigor. And just maybe introducing different bull breeds. That makes like a 4% difference in your weaning weights. It's going to make 2 to 3% difference in your conception rates for those replacement heifers. They're going to last longer in the herd. It's going to decrease your cull percentages. So there's other black cattle. You can still have black cattle, and you can breed the Herefords and have black baldies. Those are excellent. That's an excellent cross, or Simmental. There's a lot of different options. People forget that, and we lose out on that benefit. That's free, right? I mean, it doesn't cost you anymore to buy a different breed of bull. Costs are pretty much the same. So just a little ingenuity, a little forethought in that. And there's a lot of other things, but those are a couple just fundamental things for people to remember.
And in our call, folks, and making those changes to their projections, like updating their reproductive statistics, like I have pulled up here, the impact of some of those decisions is pretty astronomical. And you definitely see it as you forecast it out into year 5. So just little decisions and good management pays off a lot.
Yeah, just to mention, like on this example, we use that here too, right? I mean, a little bit of feed, we increase those conception rates in the mature cows by 2 to 3%, and that increased the enterprise efficiency by $10, right? And over 3,000 grazing unit months, that's a $30,000 increase in profit, just making that little change. And that was just by paying a little more attention to body condition score and their feed management.
Cool. Yeah, well, this has been wonderful, you guys. It is a great tool. We appreciate that you are serving the ranching community. I think it dovetails well with a lot of the schools that are out there, including Ranching for Profit, the Savory Institute, and the principles that we learned within those, or HRM, holistic management classes. So hope that you can jump in. The pricing is very economical. When it's really kind of a no-brainer from the pricing standpoint, with the amount of information and frustration that it solves if you're trying to run these projections either by hand or even in a spreadsheet. It's like, to me, it's an easy thing for me to be able to roll out to our clients, because it's like, it makes my life a lot easier if their numbers are put together. And I think it makes their management a lot easier as well. So I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about the summit, and then we'll wrap up here. I realize that many of you may be listening to this after the summit already happens if you're on the podcast. But for those that are here, if you haven't joined this event, here is the link. It is absolutely free, and I'm going to share my screen and show you the lineup of speakers that we have. It's pretty awesome. So when you go to that link, it's a basic registration landing page, takes you here. We call it the Profitable Regeneration Summit because we believe that profitability and regeneration actually go hand in hand. If we continue to to degenerate the land through improper practices, we will at some point not be profitable anymore. And we can't solely focus on regeneration without also knowing our economic numbers. And that's why, the ranch vision is so critical, because it helps us with that. So it is April 15th and 16th. We're just a few days away. Basically, just click on the link to register. It takes you to your information. This is for specifically for farmers and ranchers committed to regeneration. My family and I, we ranch here in northeastern Nevada. We may not be in your exact context in that, we're high desert, but the cool thing about this is we have ranchers and producers from literally around the world in all different environments, and we'll walk through who those are. So this is me. I'm Jared Sorensen, privileged to be the host of this through our company called Ag Steward. My wife and I founded this about 2.5 years ago, and we've been really grateful for the outpouring of people who have come to these events ready and primed and willing to learn. So if anybody's been in the event, go ahead and type in the chat, put in the event that, yes, put a Y in there if you've already been there. I know some of your names are recognizable. So keynote speaker, Burke Tigert, great ranch manager and leader, managed, I don't know how many, probably in the hundreds of thousands of head of cattle and dozens of employees, doing it at scale throughout the United States. So we asked him to be our keynote speaker. And here's the pretty cool lineup that we have. So Alejandro Carrillo from the Chihuahuan Desert. Our outliers are Bart and Sonny Miller. They do dress like cowboys, and they actually are the real deal. They may not be ranchers, but they're going to be talking about relationships, specifically husband and wife and family relationships within business. And then we have a pretty cool lineup. I'll just read these if you're listening to the podcast. I know those that are on live can see them, but Dale Fickey, Dr. Liz Haney, Jim Garish, Josh Adams talking about soil health. Everybody knows Keith Burns from Green Cover Seed. Steve Campbell, he's one of our videos that generally get the most views, and we get the most comments and interaction with Steve Campbell. He learned from the late Gerald Fry. Alan Crockett, he's been one of our mentors. Todd Churchill, who preaches the same thing that we've learned here today, enterprise accounting. Wally Olson, he's got a unique task of being able to say, okay, he studied with Bud Williams. He was the mentor to both of us. Wally's going to be talking about where we're at in the cattle cycle, what we need to do to prepare. He's lived through many different booms, busts in the cattle cycle, and so his perspective will be awesome. Cam King from Farm Rebel talking about direct marketing. Andrew Millison, everybody knows Clay Conroy from the Working Cows podcast, and Jordan Steele. That is our lineup. And hey, look down here. One of our sponsors is Ranch Vision. We're really grateful for them and sponsoring and sharing this event. Also Farm Rebel and the AV Hub of the Savory Institute, who we collaborate with. So the event is free. There's an opportunity where you can join the next event that we have, which there is a slight charge to that, but this is where the summit is more high level. When you go to the next page on the registration, this is your opportunity to jump in and to be able to apply the principles that you're learning on your farm or your ranch within your context. And you can tell the price for that is $47. Quick video there tells you about what happens at that class. Encourage you to jump into that as well. So that's May 1st and 2nd. Whereas the summit is more high level, this is going to be, where boots on the ground for your operation. So that's what we have coming up with Ag Steward. We also we continue the cadence of every second and fourth Thursday doing these live webinars. So you can, if you're registered for this, you'll get the information if you're on the podcast. Agsteward.fyi is the place to go and to register for the summit. It's agsteward.fyi/podcast, I believe is the URL. We'll put it in the show notes. So we hope to see you on there. It's awesome. Dr. Brazil, anything you'd like to say as we wrap up this session here today?
Just thank you for the opportunity to be here. And like I say, I appreciate your efforts and what you're doing. You're a great networker. You bring a lot of good resources together, a lot of value for your clients. So definitely appreciate what you're doing.
Well, likewise. Yep. And Michaela, thank you very much. Any final thoughts you have?
No,
Appreciate
just
you being part of this.
Yeah, just second that, Jared. Thank you for putting this on. Totally agree with everything Rich said. You're a visionary, and the networking that you guys provide is really powerful. Ranching folks need more of that.
Okay, well, it's an honor to be able to serve this community. You know, I grew up in agriculture, and I know the struggles. I've gotten the foreclosure letters in the mail. I've spent the sleepless nights, a lot of it over the economic side of how do we make this work? How do we keep the legacy going? And I remember my dad when he left on his first mission when I was about 24 years old, 23 or 24 years old, and he turned over management. He said, I hope this is not a millstone around your neck. I couldn't understand that at that age because it was what I loved. It's what I wanted. But as I faced those economic challenges and I didn't have the tools that we've talked about here, it began to feel like a millstone around my neck. This thing that I loved was weighting me down. It was, and literally felt like I was physically and emotionally drowning. So I'm grateful that we have these tools, that we have the technology. It does not replace the minds that God's given us. It doesn't replace the networking that we need. It doesn't replace boots on the ground. All of that is going to be necessary, even as AI rolls out and robots and all the other technological advancements that are happening in the world today. We still need stewardship, and we need stewards, and it's a privilege to be able to serve this community. So Michaela and Dr. Brazil and Keely, thank you so much for being on here today. Thanks everybody for listening. We hope you'll join us again, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.